Ladies and gentlemen, the Fuse Nation of Sports Fusion. My name is Alex Fuse. You are watching a brand new Sports Fusion episode. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch the show. On today's show, we have a big guest on. He's a writer for NewJersey.com, Mr. Randy Miller. So, Randy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. He's a New York Yankees beat writer. And let's talk some New York Yankees baseball. The Yankees lost at a score of 7-5 against a wild card team that they should probably need to beat if they still want to make the wild card or even the division game. They still got to win a lot of games. They play them 2 more times this week. And what did you think of the Yankee game last night when they played the Mariners?
Well, it was once again the Gary Sanchez show, 2 homers, and it was like, oh, by the way, Starlin Castro had 2 homers too. What Sanchez is doing right now, it's like he's becoming bigger than the Yankees, and they're an exciting team to watch right now. Last night's game, though, showed the flaws that this team has. The reason that they sold players at the trade deadline is because they're short on talent, and last night we see that they're still not good in starting pitching. You can't count on Pineda, and their middle relief is a big issue. And Pineda goes up a 3-run homer, and that turned one of their leads into a deficit. And Anthony Swarzak did the same thing, and they ended up losing the game.
Now, do you think Girardi made the right call with bringing in Swarzak in that situation?
He said after the game that he he brought him in because he thought that the slider his slider would do well against the Seattle catcher, and he hung it. And I guess he only had Clippard and Betances for the late innings, and he thought it would be asking too much to have those 2 guys get more than 9 outs. So that's why he went with Swarzak there. And at that point in the game, could they have left Pineda in? He had been shaky. He's just a guy that you can't understand him because he's so dominant at times. He makes so many mistakes that he's just very frustrating. And I don't know that I would count on him being a big part of the future because he's just so unreliable with all that talent. I just don't know that it's ever going to be what it could be.
So do you think the Yankees should try to trade away Michael Pineda in the offseason this year?
Well, he has 1 more year of salary arbitration before he becomes a free agent. And my guess is that they will keep him for next year because their starting pitching is so thin, and they will keep him and give him 1 more year. That's my guess, but I don't think they're going to look to sign him long term. I can see him leaving as a free agent after next season, unless he really turns around. And there have been flashes this year, but the first half of the season, he was awful. And it was to the point where there was a lot of talk of taking him out of the rotation, and then he had a pretty good stretch in August. But even now, I think 3 of his last 7 have been bad starts. And a lot of times with him is he makes a mistake and it turns into a home run. Joe Girardi was saying before yesterday's game that he thinks it's kind of fluky that every mistake Pineda makes turns into a home run, but he makes a lot of mistakes. And he's a guy that gives up 5 runs and consistently says he thinks he's throwing the ball well, and just doesn't. I never see him being upset after a start. Maybe one time this year when he was really going through a rough stretch, but he thinks he pitches pretty well when he goes 5 1/3 innings and gives up 5 runs, and that doesn't cut in the big league. So I don't think he's a huge part of the future, but because the starting pitching with the Yankees is so weak right now, and the free agent starting pitching are so weak, that I think they're kind of stuck with him for another year.
Okay. And one player that you mentioned earlier in the show is Gary Sanchez, and he has really caused Brian McCann some problems. He's not starting the starter catcher anymore. So going forward, is Gary Sanchez the Yankees starter catcher?
Gary Sanchez is the catcher, and Brian McCann either is the designated hitter or he becomes, I think, the Atlanta Braves catcher again. McCann has a couple more years on his contract, a full no trade, plus a club option for a 3rd year. I was just in Atlanta recently and was talking to some people there, and I get the feeling that the Braves want him bad for next season because he's popular. He's a Georgia guy. They're going into a new stadium. They don't draw real well in Atlanta, and now they're going out of downtown into kind of a suburb where they think the money is, and I think they're trying to bring that name back. I can see him being traded, but that said, I think McCann would be better off as a DH than catcher with the Yankees because he's not old. I think he's 31, but he's an old 31.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of wear and tear. He's never hit with the Yankees the way he did in Atlanta, which is baffling because Yankee Stadium is a better ballpark to hit. One reason that I would consider keeping him, number one, you're not going to get much for him probably because of his contract, but he has embraced this role as DH, switching. He's a real leader in that clubhouse, and they took some leaders out by trading Beltran, trading Miller, and you need to have some leadership with a bunch of young kids, and he provides that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And one player that is also leaving that might also be a leader considered is Mark Teixeira. He's been there since 2009. So going forward, Mark Teixeira isn't playing that much. Tyler Austin is getting the call at first base. So going forward, does Mark Teixeira kind of serve as a pinch hit late in the game kind of guy going forward the rest of the season?
I think that they will rotate, and Tyler Austin, I think, has a shot to get the majority of the playing time, but right now he's hitting 130 in 6 games, and he had 3 hits in his first 2 games, had a homer in his first at bat, but he's looked bad to play lately, and I know you can't judge a guy by 6 at bats, but we're talking about a guy who only a year or so ago was taken off the 40-man roster, so he did have a very good 3-4 months in AAA this year and really put himself on the radar to get this call-up, but I'm not sure that Tyler Austin is in the same class as Judge or Gary Sanchez or some of the other young prospects the Yankees have. And because of that, I see Teixeira getting his share of playing time in the final 5 or 6 weeks of his career here before he retires. Right now, they're getting no production out of first base at all. Teixeira's hitting 196 with 10 homers, and Austin's hitting 130 with 1 homer. So I think they really want to see what they have in Austin. So my guess is if they play 7 games a week, that Austin's going to get 4 starts out of it. Teixeira will get 3. So I think it's kind of the rotate basis going by pitching matchups.
Okay, Randy, before we wrap up this interview, I want to ask you, do you see this Yankee team making the wild card this year?
No, I don't see them making a wild card this year. They're in it because you can be in it nowadays with a close to 500 record, and they're 63 and 61. They're not the worst team in the league. They're not one of the 5 worst teams in the league. They're a middle road team, and when you look at the teams that they're going up against potentially for playoff contenders, they're not as good as them right now. Clearly, they're the 4th best team in the AL East. The clubs that they're in the running for the wild card: Houston, Seattle, Baltimore, Boston, teams like that. They're not as good as them, and I think the reason is because they're starting pitching. Right now, you have 2 young kids in this rotation: Luis Sessa, Chad Green, and they're in a rotation with CC Sabathia, who was very good in his first 11 starts, and not too good in his last 11 starts. I don't know how you can expect to win when you have basically a rotation that is very, very mediocre. Your bullpen is much weaker now. You take Chapman out of it, you take Miller out of it. I think that this is a fun time to be a Yankee fan if you're a Yankee fan, though, because these kids bring a lot of energy and they're making the games fun, and it makes you believe that the future is better, kind of like in a way the Red Sox retooled the last couple years and how they're in the running for playoff spot now with a bunch of young kids. And Sanchez is not this good. He's not going to be a 390 hitter with 100 home runs. You know, you look at his AAA stats this year, he was a 280 hitter with 10 homers. So he's going to cool down. That's inevitable. But these are valuable bats that you need to grow as a player, and I think that'll help them next year.
Okay, Randy, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day over in Seattle to come on Sports Fusion this morning. And I want you to put out your Twitter handle so Yankee fans that are watching now can follow you on Twitter to follow along for the rest of the season.
My My Twitter is at Randy J. Miller. And if you send me questions, I'll answer your questions. And it's always good to have a chat with the Yankee fans.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy, for coming on today.
Okay, anytime. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, Fuse Nation, you just heard it from Randy Miller, who is a New York Yankees beat writer for NewJersey.com. I go live with Ethan Tucci for the first across-the-country sports show right now. So head over to my next YouTube video to watch it. Thank you, Fuse Nation, for watching. I will see you in less than a minute.